Um, It is 6 o'clock on Tuesday, the 23rd of August, 2022. And I open this regular Wenatchee School District Board meeting by asking us all to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Last meeting, when we weren't live. Oh. A bit better. Okay, all right. Last meeting, when we unfortunately were not live on video, I had prepared a more aggressive welcome statement to everybody, and I will then repeat it today, even though there are not very many of us here. As we are ready for the new academic year, I welcome everyone to this board meeting and thank you for joining us, whether it be in person, online, or if you use the recording of the meeting later to keep yourself informed. We are grateful for your civic effort, and we hope that we're able to get our meetings out to the public so that all can see them and hear them. Hoy, mientras nos preparamos para el nuevo año académico, ofrezco una bienvenida a esta reunión de la mesa directiva del distrito escolar. Gracias por su asistencia, si sea en persona, online, o usando el video más tarde para mantenerse informado. Agradecemos su esfuerzo cívico. The meeting is conducted in English, but we do have translation services so that citizen comment, if requested, may be spoken in Spanish and be repeated in English. Si alguien quiere hacer su comentario de ciudadano o recibir explicaciones en español, por favor indique su necesidad. Tenemos disponible un servicio de traducción. Thank you for that. Are there any requests to modify the consent agenda, which is the next item? That being the case, the consent agenda consists of the minutes from the meeting of the 9th of August, vouchers and payroll, the personnel report, and the contracts and their attachments. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Julie. Is there a second for that motion? Thank you, Catherine. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? There being none, I ask for a vote. Will those in favor please signify? Aye. Thank you. The consent agenda is approved. The next item on the agenda is citizens' comments, which is the time for the board to welcome and listen to public comment. Comments do need to be scheduled beforehand. We have a 3-minute time limit, and I will warn speakers when their time is about to expire, as it isn't easy to watch the clock. And Kim, do we have any? None have come in? Okay. So we have no citizens' comments, and we then move on briskly to probably the highlight of today's meeting. Bill, your special presentation on the interim superintendent's transition plan is up and very welcome.
All right, thank you very much. Ron will pull up some slides, and I wanted to briefly share with the board about my plans for transition into the work this year, which is really kind of already started. So Ron, if you want to advance to the next slide. So new superintendents typically pursue a transition plan to engage with stakeholders in order to learn about the district and build relationships. And that process is used to gather information about the hopes and concerns and ideas of the students, the staff, the board, and the community. Because I am serving in an interim role, my plan focuses primarily on providing stable leadership during this transition period. So that means maintaining organizational momentum with some of the district's current initiatives, promoting the positive work of the district, but also engaging with staff, the board, and the community around our strategic plan. And for me this year, creating some fiscal stability moving forward. So As I move through this year in the interim role, I'm excited to leverage some existing relationships that I've developed in my prior service in Wenatchee, but also to forge new relationships to help move the district forward. So the next slide is a list of priorities for my work with the district and the board this year as the search and hire process for a permanent superintendent begins. And as you know, this year, the district is preparing to launch a new strategic plan that was developed under the leadership of my predecessor, Dr. Gordon, but I will be actively involved in assisting with the launch of that strategic plan. And that actually begins tomorrow with our entire staff, although I've spent some time already with our leadership team around the strategic plan with the support of my cabinet members. In addition, I will work closely with the board and the cabinet to track progress related to that strategic plan and report on that progress throughout the year. And another priority that is emerging for me is to work closely with our fiscal department, our HR team, our cabinet team, union leadership, and the board as we begin to adjust our budget to better align with our decreasing enrollment trends over time. So with those priorities in mind, the next few slides are meant to provide the board with a look at how I will communicate and be available to our staff, students, and community throughout the year. And you'll see here in my plan, it's a lot about being highly visible and available for both the community and the staff this year. My goal is to sustain and build positive relationships to promote the great work that the school district is doing. You'll also note the plan includes meetings with a superintendent's advisory committee, which is actually a group of students from Wenatchee High School and Westside High School. So student voice from that group will be an important source of input for myself, the board, and the cabinet team as we move throughout the year, and I'm looking forward to that. I would say that I hit the ground running in July, so to speak, and August. So when you look at the next slide here, many of the actions on this list have already been completed or will happen soon, including our opening day event with staff, which is tomorrow. And again, I mentioned that will be the launch of our strategic plan. The cabinet team and I will be working with staff in the morning to set the groundwork for the work on the strategic plan over the next 5 years and launch our new brand with staff as well. Moving into October and December, as I mentioned earlier, I'll be attending events throughout the year to communicate with stakeholders and promote a positive view of the things that are happening in the district, as well as listening to concerns and potential areas of improvement. So as we move into October through December, you will see I continue to focus on opportunities for me to connect with our own school system and with the community. You see a theme of connecting with various groups throughout this plan, and I think the ability to connect with students, staff, and the community is an important aspect of this work, and that ultimately enhances the district's ability to meet the needs and expectations of the families and the students we serve. So that's an important piece of this plan. When you look at the things on these lists for the way I hope to spend a good deal of my time, you'll see I'm out in the community, I'm at staff meetings, I'm promoting the strategic plan, gathering input and listening to concerns of stakeholders as we move forward. Now, by the time we roll into the January timeframe, we'll be deeper into the superintendent search process. And as the board moves into the spring of 2023, that process will be in full swing, and I will be preparing to share not only progress on our strategic plan with the board, but also prepare updates for whomever will be in this role next year moving forward and taking the lead on the strategic plan. Moving into April and June, ideally, I feel like at this point, we will know who the new superintendent will be, and I will be actively working with the board as well as my cabinet members to ensure a smooth transition for the new superintendent. as well as providing a positive close to the 22-23 school year with some of the traditional activities we do to celebrate the year with staff, students in the community, culminating in the graduation ceremony at Wenatchee High School and Westside High School. So you have a little bit more detail about my transition plan outlined in a PDF in the board packet, but this is a high overhead view of primarily how I plan to spend my time making myself available to the community, the staff, and moving the strategic plan forward and some of the other initiatives that we have in the district, the PLC initiative, and as well as some of the other things that are program initiatives around EL programming, et cetera. So that gives you a high overhead pass. And my last slide is just an opportunity for you to ask questions about this plan or about the work that I've started or plan to do this year.
Thank you very much, Bill. At the question section, I open this up for board members to make comments or ask questions.
What's been your biggest surprise so far?
The HVAC at Wenatchee High School, which is we'll talk about later today in my report. Yes.
No, you have really hit the ground running, and I know that there have been some curveballs thrown at you very early in the game, and I appreciate the way you've handled those
Thank
today.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate looking at this kind of year ahead and seeing some really concrete things happening and expectations and whatnot that we can really measure and look at and refer back to. So I appreciate having this already so organized and kind of at our fingertips.
Thank you. I had a lot of help in putting this together. Diana Haglund was instrumental in helping me navigate the waters and put together the slides and the presentation of the plan. So thank you, Diana, for your work in that regard. Okay.
In that case, I'd like to thank you, Bill. This is characteristic of the work you've done in the last 2 months. It's to the point, it's thorough, and you've been extremely responsive. I'm very enthusiastic on behalf of the board for continuing our working relationship. So thank you very much. The next 3 items are action items. The first one being resolution number 0422, the adoption of the 22-23 budget. Do we have a motion to adopt the budget?
So moved.
Thank you, Laura. So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you, Julie, for seconding that. Is there any discussion on the resolution to adopt the 22-23 budget? That being the case, I will ask for people to indicate their vote. Those in favor, please indicate that.
Aye.
All in favor, so that resolution 2422, which is the adoption of the budget, is approved. The next item is resolution 0522, which is a resolution of the board directors of the Wenatchee School District designating general funds for future capital projects. And this involves the $4 million that is earmarked for future softball compliance. Do we have a motion to approve this resolution 0522?
I make a motion to approve resolution 0522.
Thank you, Maria. Do we have a second for that motion? Thank you, Catherine. Do we have any discussion?
I just want to thank Bill and the team, Corey, for, this has been a conversation for quite a long time, way before I think, well, Laura might be the exception. Anyways, a guy here. So thank you for all the work and preparation to get this moving.
Thanks, Maria. Any other? In that case, wait, I've got confused. Did I call for a vote already? No, I haven't. I call for a vote on the resolution 0522.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that is passed. The next action item is mine, and this is the request for a proposal for this superintendent search consultant services. This is the first formal step in the process. The North Central Educational Service District contract, by which Bill serves us so ably, terminates on June the 30th, 2023. And so we have a lengthy process of seeking to find our replacement. I will later on show you the tentative schedule, which shows the steps. We go through publishing requesting proposals today through a process of evaluation and hiring of the consultant. There are community surveys and feedback so that we create a desired profile for the position, and then move on to recruitment, screening, and interviewing of candidates, ultimately to the hiring of the superintendent. I do want to say a bit about where this document comes from. The RFP committee, which is Vice President Maria Iñiguez and myself, we drew from multiple resources for this. We did have the 2018 superintendent search information for Wenatchee. The North Central Educational Services District were invaluable as consultants with a deep knowledge of what works well in and fits our region. Actually, thanks to legal counsel, we received a model RFP from a very high standard, experienced Washington School District, which gave us points of reference and things to check for focal point issues and coverage. And finally, I do want to we thank the district's legal counsel, Danielle Marchant, who screened and reworked the document for completeness and to define critical performance areas in legally sound wording. So a lot of people put good work into this document. The recommendation that goes with this is that we approve the RFP, that we authorize publication of the RFP once finalized, and in the event of edits or revisions as agreed during the board discussion, recommendation to delegate authority to the president to finalize the RFP in accordance with the agreed revisions. In the context of that, I am informed that there are a couple of suggested edits from board members and suggestions that are well worth considering during the discussion stage of the motion. So Ron, you've got the date up. Today, we hopefully approve the RFP, and tomorrow we submit it to lists of consultants and to promote it to as many professional search firms as we can find. We allow approximately 3 weeks from that. We then evaluate the responses, and I'll talk about the criteria at the next slide. And then the committee will bring to the board a recommended consultant. Following that step, the consultant will do a lot of work through December, mid-October through December, of surveying the staff, the community, and developing a profile. We're hoping in the first meeting in January to approve the profile, which is the kind of superintendent that we think will, hopefully we and the whole community think will perform superbly for the district. Following that, with the consultant firm, they will recruit, screen, there will be an interview section, some meeting of the community so people know what's going on. And we hope to have our superintendent in place on July the 1st, 2023. So that's the program. And I do want to say a little bit about Ron, can you put up the search criteria? The rest of the document includes the scope of work, required information, and things like that. But I think this gives you the heart of what we're looking for. The criteria for selection a consultant is we want somebody who's responsive to what we've asked for. We want somebody who's got a good record of accomplishing regional searches for districts similar to us, and non-regional ones. We're willing to look outside our own area. We do want a good plan for including ethnically and racially diverse candidates, and also for internal candidates who are currently employees of the district. It's important that we go everywhere in this search. We want a strong plan for supporting stakeholder, that's students, families, educators and staff, and the community engagement. Then it'll be important what they can show for, do they have a network of superintendent candidates, both regionally and nationally? When they brought in superintendents for other districts, Have those superintendents stayed and performed? Their tenure, is it good? The stability and longevity of the search firm, the qualification of the people they put on the job, and the availability to help us in person and virtually as we go through the process. If there's anything unique and special of what they do, references from people who've used them recently, and finally, of course, the cost. So those are the criteria. It's a pretty broad brush. We do hope that we get a very strong consultant. At that point, I would ask if there is a motion to approve the RFP, second it, and then move into discussion.
I'll move for approval of the RFP for superintendent search.
Thank you, Laura.
I will second.
Thank you, Maria. Okay. Laura, I know you have some discussion on one item. Do you want to
Yeah.
introduce that?
Absolutely. So I commend you both for doing a really fine job and, Bill, for your participation in this as well, because I think for the most part, it's a really thorough document, and I appreciated every component that is in there. Having been through a superintendent search before, one thing that did stand out for me was in the community engagement section. So I'm not sure. What I see as missing is a feedback loop for the board to receive the specific data, the raw data, if you will, from the stakeholder groups that submit surveys. I think one piece of really strong feedback that we received in the prior search was that folks who participated in those stakeholder groups ended up feeling disregarded, undervalued, and not heard. And I really want us to prevent that kind of feedback from the community again, because we want to build relationship with everybody who is a stakeholder in our district, and moving forward, make sure that everybody's input is valid and valued. I'm not suggesting that we turn over the hiring of the superintendent to the stakeholder groups, but I just want to make sure that those pieces of feedback that we received are fully and properly considered, and that was missing in the last time. So balance how we do that with not implying that this is a popular vote type of decision. The board holds the decision to hire the superintendent, and it is done so, by voting. We each put in our yay or nay on the proposed candidate. Anyway, that pretty well sums up my feedback. I really want to see that the board is going to be given the opportunity to review the surveys as they are written, if we so choose.
So for clarification, are you proposing adding more detail in that community engagement section? Because I see there's a section that says summarize and create the Wenatchee leadership profile and finalize with the board. I don't actually know what that means,
Right.
reading it there.
So we probably had something similar in our previous RFP, and a summary was provided, but there were people calling me in particular saying, I wrote a particular thing on my survey that I wanted you to see because we were told that the board was going to see these documents. And that only at my insistence did that actually happen. So I just want to make sure we
So there
close that
probably
loop.
should be a detail in there that it'll be shared with.
I
board.
think there is. I wanted this to have the whole board to be able to speak. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Apologize. I wanted to have the whole board speak on this. I do think the point is in the place to look at is community engagement, where currently the document says summarize and create a Wenatchee leadership profile and finalize with the board. And I think what Laura is saying is what's missing is the words I put in as a suggestion were summarize, provide access to supporting data, and create a leadership profile. That then gives places in the document the door for board members to obtain additional information and serve the public. Is that
Yeah,
Close
I
to
would
it.
use the term raw data because,
okay?
you know,
So, well-
filtered through the interpretation of the search consultants is not necessarily giving a true representation. So just for an example, you know, I went through however many hundreds of surveys we got. And I spent just a really quick, you know, all I was allowed was 45 minutes to do that. But I did go through that and did a quick tabulation of, you know, what were the key questions and how people were feeling. And it's not something that was super time consuming, but it gave me a really great picture of where the stakeholder groups were overwhelmingly. And that did not come out in the summary given by the consultants.
Yeah, no, that's actually a great idea, which leads me to think that we need to be specific in regards to that leadership profile, the surveys being conducted in both Spanish and English. And I think it's important to specify it here, because if this is a service that a company can provide, then, you know, we might just move on.
Yeah, it's important to serve all our constituents and however is best to communicate with them.
Right. I mean, it's kind to me, it's not a question. We've been, you know, our district has made a huge leap in providing all of our materials in Spanish and English, and this wouldn't be the exception. So.
Right, they should include that price, that cost.
Yeah,
In the RFP.
Maybe in the community engagement, adding at the end of these conducting focus group sections in, you know, in multilingual languages or.
I'm glad you brought that up because we've focused on where they should look, but without the language. I was wondering whether we should add another circular bullet that the community engagement activities should be carried out in Spanish and English.
Yeah, somehow to at least
And that would
clarify
apply to
that
all of
that
them.
is an expectation that these focus groups
Yeah.
and surveys are offered in both. Whether it's, yeah, a separate bullet point or added to the end of either of these, I think.
Yeah, in all forms of communication.
Yeah. I'm just, if in fact, so that I don't sit there wordsmithing for too long, I think we want something that applies as an umbrella statement to that whole section. Is that correct? That it should be in Spanish and English. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
And I'll get the precise words if I'm allowed to, finalizing the document. Okay. And then Laura, I do have a question. Is there a difference between raw data and data?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say raw or actual data.
Okay. Anybody got any hard feelings about that?
Well, if you don't say raw data, then, I mean, it's easy to tabulate something that's done on a Likert scale, you know, you can tabulate that very quickly. It's the, I'm struggling with the right word, but it's the written comments that aren't necessarily translated in accumulation of a data.
Yeah.
You know, they can pick out a few things here and there.
Right, and part of it is the form and content too. You want to see it in the form
Okay.
that went out and
Yeah.
coming back, maybe names scrubbed so people feel comfortable doing that so that they can't be identified. But yeah, there's a difference between you having 100 pages of material versus one spreadsheet that you don't know whose answer goes where. So you may have raw data, but not in the same form. So I just would like to see the actual responses.
No, I think that's fine. It seems to have consensus for the word raw. And the reason I was asking is I think access, we don't want to make it a requirement. We want to make it something that people can get and is freely on offer. But we don't want to force feed everybody to read more data than they want to look at. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So do I take it then we have consensus to summarize, provide access to supporting raw data and create a profile, and that we will apply to that whole section that both Spanish and English should be provided. Okay. The other input that I'm aware of is from Julie, and I'm going to summarize it because I've got a mock-up that I think is an improvement on what was written in the document before us. I don't think it changes substantially anything except in the document, we used rounded numbers for the number of employees and the number of students, and Julie has made that more accurately by specifying what's an approximate and what's a real number. And I think that it's improved the presentation. So if it's, I don't think it's a change in substance, but it is in presentation. So I would like to read it one paragraph at a time. And if any board members do not object, I will then finalize the document in this way. The Wenatchee School District consists of 1 early childhood learning center, 7 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, 1 comprehensive high school, 1 alternative high school, a K-8 alternative parent partnership school, an internet academy, and a technical center. On average, the district employs 1,100 exceptional educators who take pride in serving the approximately 6,900 students attending schools in the district. Our diverse student population is 53% Latino, 43% white, 1% Asian, and 3% from other or multiple racial backgrounds. And then there's no change for the remainder of that paragraph. There is no change to the paragraph about centering on the strategic plan. And then this third paragraph is changed as follows. The city of Wenatchee, with a population of approximately 34,000, is located on the Columbia River east of the Cascade Mountains and is considered North Central Washington's regional hub. The city has a diversified economy with export-oriented agriculture, which yielded its Apple Capital of the World name, hydropower, health and knowledge services, government, outdoor recreation, and strong traditions of arts and community philanthropy. The content of this is the same as what we had originally, and I do want to say it seemed important as we drafted this to show the nature of opportunities and educational requirements and activities in our district in a current, up-to-date, and forward-looking way. But anyway, so that is the rewording of that. Do any of the board members see anything that causes them concern? If that's the case, then we will follow that revised wording. Are there any other discussion items? I want to thank you all for waiting and then putting in your feedback. It's been very helpful, and we look forward to this process all year. And at that point, I think it is time to call for a vote. Let me make sure I've got all the parts of the vote tabulated, because
Point of order on
Yeah.
this one, though, because I think we need to modify the amendment now
oh, sorry.
to approve the RFP as modified and consistent with our discussion.
Can you?
I amend my motion. I think I moved that, or did you? Yeah, I amend my motion to approve the superintendent search RFP as modified by the discussion, and authorize the board president to finalize the language. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And also include authorized publication of the RFP once finalized. That was in the original. too.
Yes, that was in my motion.
Yeah, it was.
I'll second the motion as revised.
Thank you, Julie. And thank you for correcting my order. You keep me under control. Both of you. Okay, at that point, I'll ask for a vote. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Thank you very much. Board communication is the next item on the agenda. So I open the floor to those board members who have a communication to make.
I have 2 items. One is that we recently, I believe we all received an email about Senator Hawkins' listening sessions. And I was curious if we, as a board, wanted to participate in that. And if so, don't remember the schedule exactly, but it's coming up quickly. So I'm putting that out there. Julie, maybe you have the most input on it since you've been our legislative representative.
I did not read that email very closely just yet, but I think it's a good idea and something, if not, we all participate in for sure. I should probably sit in and anyone
I
else.
think we need to schedule an appointment with him,
Yeah.
according to the newsletter.
He's gonna be in the area the
September 13th through the 16th, and yeah, it's by appointment.
And then a point of order on that, that would need to be with either a open board session or a two-person committee meeting with him.
Right.
I think Julie and one other person would form a committee and make it more flexible, or
I would be happy to do that if if there is more interest, I think it's a good idea.
just,
So if there is more than two people interested, then we should schedule it as a full board meeting event. If there's not, then I'm happy to go with somebody
Okay.
else to,
I think also since
Schedule.
we rely on our staff to carry out the operations of the district, it might be important to have key staff participating in that listening session so that they can bring forward key points that impact them in their daily work.
I think,
Leave it to Bill to decide.
yeah,
Bill,
and I
you-
agree with
you-
that. And that wouldn't implicate
yeah,
public
and
meetings.
Bill,
at
you're
all,
nodding as
so-
well, right? Because I think this is an opportunity, right? So,
I'm happy to join Julie and.
yeah, well, it looks like we have wider interest in that. So I was going to ask if the superintendent's office can explore the possibility of getting a larger group together, including key employees, and then report back to the board with what we can do.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you.
These are listening sessions where we talk to Representative Hawkins. So
Correct.
should we, as a board, have some topics that we as a whole board want communicated? So that it's coming from the whole board as a,
Yes.
and not individual.
Absolutely. I think we should pull that in part from the priorities that we
Right.
worked on with WASDA and also from our operational leaders in terms of what they're feeling. Where the pinch points are, definitely.
And I think I'm trying to think through the process. Basically, then I'm going to, since you're the legislative rep and Maria, you also work in that area. If the two of you could work with the superintendent and that to produce something.
Yeah, and I can attend too. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Sounds like
okay.
we're all going to be invited now.
We're all
at
going
this
to be
point.
invited,
Oh,
but we- short of having a workshop to prepare our input, we need to have an ability to have something ready for that meeting.
Yes, gotcha.
I will get with Kim to get the priorities that we previously had. I don't think WASDA has finalized their book yet. So if you've started looking through the drafts that WASDA
Yeah.
is looking at right now, but there may be some other things that are outliers that aren't even in there that we as a local district may want to suggest to or talk to Hawkins about as well.
Yeah.
So
And I mean, although he says he's listening, it would be interesting to ask him as he goes into the next session, since he's active in education, if he has any items that on his priority list.
he proposed a few items last year that didn't make
Right.
it all the way through, and I think they were pretty well received, at least in this area. So it might be interesting to hear if he's planning to bring those back and what we
Yeah.
locally can do to support those efforts a little better.
If he was willing to talk to us as well as listen, that would probably be of interest.
So just to be clear, Maria and Julie are gonna put together questions and topics that we have an interest in discussing with him, but we'll all have the opportunity to be at that listening session.
Yes, I'm just doing it so that we have two people, which is a committee, doing the legwork to get the question,
Not an open
information
meetings
together.
issue.
I saw your hands going up over there.
What were we about to say?
No, and if we could receive a draft of that.
Yeah.
Prior to, so we.
Yeah.
Flat footed, that'd be awesome. I have one other item. So. It has come to my attention that we might possibly, I'm not sure when the policy committee is meeting next. And who's on the policy committee right now? Is it you
Maria
and
and I.
Maria? Okay. Do you know when your next meeting is?
Well, it was October 1st, but we moved.
Okay, so possibly this is already covered, but I wanted to mention policy number 3114 and 3131 as potential need
What-
for review. And the basic issue is regarding, well, I found that there was a difference between the policy and the procedure, especially on 3131. And it pertains to, I believe it pertains to, and maybe my interpretation isn't correct, but I believe it pertains to part-time students. That our district is resistant to having part-time students, and there's reference to a particular date in February of 2017 when we changed our procedure. I'd like the policy committee to look at that specifically, and in the era of, having just been through COVID and so on, and lots of more people are participating in online education. I know that we have some families that are looking for online opportunities for their students, and for whatever reason, maybe our Internet Academy is not the right one for them. They want to do some work in person at the school, but they also want freedom to do online work with another district. So just want to have the committee take a look at that, please.
Can I speak to that just for a minute? Too? I know prior to summer, I had the opportunity to have a Zoom meeting with all of the WIA, the Wenatchee Internet Academy teachers, and learn about what they were doing. But as that attendance goes down, that was something that we were looking forward to a presentation from them to kind of understand where they stand, what their enrollment is going to be, and how, and if they could somehow align with the Valley Academy, and where they should fit in now that COVID's over, and looking at their enrollment and how it's decreased, but how the program should continue, something we need to look at there. And then also in a totally different vein, but looking forward, the SROs had wanted to come in and give us a presentation, kind of adding to what Ron and Mr. Coe had, when they gave their presentation on school safety and security, they were very interested. When I spoke with one in particular, wanted to come in and share their experience and what's been going on, what happened at the end of last year, to add to that safety and security report that Ron and Mr. Coe did. So I'd like to be able to get them on the schedule as well to come and talk to us and let us know what they're doing.
We do have a schedule.
Okay.
Okay. And not WIA though?
I don't put them right schedule.
Okay.
We can look in that.
Okay, any other comments?
Yeah, so I shared this earlier with Martin, but I thought maybe others would be interested in regards to a Zoom meeting in regards to this summer. There were some students that were interning and did a little bit of research on student representation research. And so they're going to be presenting early September 6th, 1 hour lunchtime meeting in regards to what they found out, and I guess the pros and cons of student representation on boards or committees. So if anybody's interested, I will forward you. I know Martin signed up to go to attend, so let me know. Cool.
Thanks, Maria. Julie? Nope. Okay. I do have one thing to report. I'm the board member superintendent representative on the State Migrant Education Advisory Committee, which meant I attended 3 days of annual conference last week. The core theme was family engagement. The content information on programs and ideas from other school districts and conference presenters was far more applicable than just to migrants. It was very, very useful and applicable to family engagement generally. And I think there may be some feedback from that could be useful to the district. And the first 2 days, just to give you an idea of what they were doing, they were presenting to educators and administrators. And actually that was all in English, and there were probably over 200 people there. And then the third day was for families and and parents in Spanish, and that was somewhat different. But there is a lot of linkage between what is there in the migrant program and our own bilingual Spanish programs. They overlap, they often share programs. And it also has a lot of potential usefulness for getting family involvement in all aspects of our community. So I just wanted to mention that that was what I was doing last week. And at that point, I think it's the superintendent's report. Bill? Oh, you got one more.
I really appreciate, I want to say that, everyone should have received this in the mail, the back to school guide. Really appreciated Bill's message, and that was, and particularly at the end, saying that all families, as always, welcome in our schools and buildings. We look forward to seeing you at events in the classroom and out in the community. I think that's really important to remind the community. We want you back in schools. We want your volunteering help, and want you participating as much as possible. Also, the welcome back to school from Wenatchee High School, very, very informative. If you haven't got your hands on that or didn't get it mailed to you, it's a great read, because Principal Anderson is stressing the things that we talked about at the end of the last school year last year. Things like accountability and attendance commitment and positive attendance, and looking at things like we discussed last year, at the end of campus lunch, having 50 students in line to get their late passes to interrupt 50 different classes. There's a policy on that, and there's a reminder in this about the attendance policy and the tardy policy, and really asking our students to step up and be accountable again for attendance and being tardy. You got to show up and you got to be on time. So I appreciated that very, very much. And finally, also the school district dress code policy, and pointing that out, and there's some reading on that and reminders for kids, and going into the high school this year. So this was great to get, and I encourage everybody to go through it. My
Okay. All right, Bill, over to you again.
All right, thank you for your comments and discussions, board. And that was a great segue, Catherine, into some of my report here. So as you know, school begins next week for Eastmont tomorrow, and we wish our Eastmont students and staff well as they kick off their school year tomorrow. But for us, we begin next week, and our staff have been preparing for several weeks now, getting the buildings ready for students, attending professional development, and planning for the upcoming school year. And I just want to say I'm proud of the work that's been done in getting our buildings ready and getting the staff ready for next week. Many of our buildings will be hosting open houses and welcome back events this week. And we look forward to seeing families and students back in our facilities with staff as we move into the school year. And I encourage parents and families and students to attend those events this week in their local school. We have experienced some HVAC issues at Wenatchee High School on the east side of the building, and our facility staff are working very hard to address some leaks and other issues to ensure the high school is ready for next week. And we're optimistic that, other than potentially the library area at Wenatchee High School, the HVAC and the rest of the east side of the building, we think will be up and running for school next week. However, this is a larger issue that I want to bring attention to for the board. Although there was some renovation and addition to the system in 1993, our HVAC system at the high school is largely the same system that was originally installed in 1970s. So overall, the vintage 1970s coils and condensing units are well beyond their life expectancy. And as a result, our M&O team have been experiencing increased frequency of equipment failures caused by refrigerant leaks in some of the older coils and piping. In addition, the age of the system is making replacement parts very difficult to find. So I would like to share some options at an upcoming meeting for a more permanent solution to the HVAC problems at the high school and potential costs associated with that. In the meantime, I've been exploring the potential for grants. There are some federal grants that will be coming out shortly I believe, in January, December timeframe that would be directly applicable to replacement of HVAC systems. And I'll explore the timing of those grants in relationship to the needs that we have at the high school. So I'll be looking into that, and I just wanted to give the board a heads up, and I'll provide some more information in the future. I also received some information from Piper Sandler. They provided me with some potential financing options for the softball facility project. I will share that information via the weekly update with the board and reserve discussion of those options as an agenda item in September, if there's interest from the board in discussing those. And last but not least, certainly, I would like to personally thank the members of my cabinet team for their support as I transition into this role. And they've been a strong supportive team, and I'm looking forward to working with them this year. Their support and the assistance they provided to me has been invaluable to me as I try and navigate this transition. So thank you to the cabinet team. They've been very valuable. And that is all from me.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I thought at one point, and I'm trying to find maybe an old agenda or meeting materials, but I thought at one point we had specifically earmarked a significant amount of our COVID funds for the HVAC project. And some of it was just maybe a timing issue of when we'd be able to do the repairs. But I thought that was kind of in line with improving the airflow was part of COVID, preventing or offsetting the spread of COVID. So we were able to use some of that funding for HVAC improvement. Is that?
We did use care funds for 2 new compressors at the high school, but I think that was about as much as we got out of care funds for it, and using it for that exactly, airflow and, for with the
Ventilation.
COVID funds. But that was the only 2, those were the only 2 things that were purchased with that money. But it was much needed. And if there was more that we could direct in that, put in that direction, it'd be great.
I will look into that. We can look at some of the minutes from previous meetings, and maybe some of the cabinet team may remember some of those discussions as well.
And Bill, is this cooling cycle only or heating and cooling cycles?
Good question, Martin. This is really an issue with the cooling cycle.
If we can't get into those grants until January, February, what are we doing right now for kids going back to school?
Good question. So actually I think it was last week, time's running through for me here. Ron Brown and Mike Lane and I actually went on the roof of Wenatchee High School, and we were able to be there with the technicians looking at the equipment, and talking with them about what do you need to make sure that the building is operational. And we were able to connect them with some community resources to get some extra support for their staff in searching out some of these leaks. And I believe we were able to secure some new equipment, a compressor that will be going in, I think tomorrow actually is when it's going in. So we've moved on some things, which is why the last update I received was that other than the library, they think they'll have the system up and running into the fall. Yeah. As a contingency plan, we did order some pretty high-powered fans as well to circulate some of the air in the building, and move that around in case some of those areas aren't fully functional by the time school starts. But again, this is a larger issue. We may get that portion of the building up and running, and then somewhere else an issue pops up. So it's going to be something we'll need to pay attention to moving forward.
As we go to this, some board members will be attending this event tomorrow with all the teachers, and it kind of welcome me back. I know they're going to ask, and I would if I were a teacher at the high school. Is my room going to be cool enough?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't stand it being in the classroom without air conditioning, and I know that there are teachers, staff, and kids that can't either. So I know they'll be asking tomorrow, so I want to be able to answer.
I have an answer for. Yeah, absolutely.
Bill, thanks for bringing it up. Actually, I'm gonna kind of beat you down. Can you give us a Valley update, the other facility surprise that we had?
Yes, absolutely. I think they're coming along well in getting the building ready for a September 19th entry by students. And in the meantime, we have been in contact with Wenatchee Valley College. Maria put me in touch with some people there that have been able to work out a facility exchange. Our Valley students are going to be in Sexton Hall primarily, but they will have access to some of the other facilities on campus at Wenatchee Valley College to help us get the first few days of school started while that facility is finished up.
Great.
Thank you very much for everybody who helped find a solution there, and appreciate your efforts on HVAC. Unless there are any more questions for Bill, I will declare the meeting closed and adjourned. Okay, thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.